and today we are looking at another cup of code. So I just wanted to run on to this short tutorial here, and particularly dealing with arrays and array lists, and just wanted to show you quickly on how array lists work under the hood. So this will help you better understand array lists, and if you're working with arrays, you can see how you can actually manipulate arrays in your project to get a better result of how you work with them, and also when you are implementing array lists, to understand what happens behind the scenes. So essentially, we just want to jump right into code. As you can see, we have a basic array here, and all array lists do use arrays under the hood. And if you do a declaration of an array list, just know that on the back end, it's basically doing the same thing that we are doing right here. So if we just do an example of, let's say, we say list of string, and we say name array list, and we just give it a new array list right here. Let's just do that, and let's do that. So if we do that, basically this declaration here will basically do the same declaration as we did here, as we declare a name list array. But for an array list, the default size will be 10, as ours is 3. So if you go to the array list and open the declaration here, you see that it has a default capacity, empty data, and if you go and check that, it's just an empty array, as you can see there, and the empty element data as well is an empty array of object right here, and is also of object right here. So if you just scroll up a bit, you will see that the default capacity for this is 10. So the array, when you declare it, it's basically going to allocate a size of 10, and it's going to use that size until it's exhausted. And once the size is exhausted, that's where it will start now manipulating the array to add more elements onto the array. So it will copy the old array with the size of 10 into a new array with the new size. So it's going to move all the elements into the new array and give you back the new updated array with the new size, and you can then use that going forward. And as the more elements you add, it's going to do the same thing. And when you remove, it's going to remove that element, and it's going to copy all the elements that's supposed to remain in the array from the existing array into a new array with a new size, and only remove that specific element. So this snippet of code here is basically just to show you how you can do the same thing using arrays and not array lists. And by using this type of code, you will better understand how array lists work and what they do under the hood when you're calling its inbuilt methods. So without wasting any of your time, we'll just comment this line out here. Let's just comment this one here, and let's just look at the results. So, or let's start by the definition here. So our array has a size of 3, like we mentioned. So the size is 3, and we give it 3 values here: John, Doe, and Test. So these are the 3 guys that we give it. And then what we want to do after assigning that, after assigning all of these guys to all the array indexes, we want to print the array. And if you go to my print function, you will see that I will say print array start, like you see here on the output. I have print array start, and then I print each element on its line, then I say print array end, and that's where it basically ends. And you'll see I just do an iterator here for the array and print all the objects. And I use generic objects here so that it's easier for you to basically use any data type that you want. So your array can be an array of objects, an array of integers, an array of strings, could be anything that you want, and you can just use a generic type like I'm doing right here. And if you can see all my methods, I'm passing in generic types everywhere. So if you have a good look, I'm working with generic types everywhere, and that basically allows me to pass in any data type, and I can reuse that easily without worrying about the data types. So that's fine for me. That works best for me. And so after printing the array, we see all the elements that are in there. And then what we want to do, the first thing is, let's just do a check for contains, how that is done in an array list. So we pass in the array, and we pass in the object that we want to check if it does exist or not. So if you go to contains, what I do here, I take the array and the object, and I pass it into my own inbuilt index of element, and I give it an array and the object, and let's see what that does. So if you look at the index of element right here, it takes the array and the object, and what it does, it iterates the array, and if it does find the object that it does exist, it's going to return the index of the object. Otherwise, it's going to return a -1, which means the element does not exist. So then we are able to say on the contains element index of array, if it's -1, then we return a false, which means the array does not contain this element, or we return a true. And then based on that, we are able to work and based on that condition, do whatever logic that we want to do. So here, if Jane does exist, we just want to print out element exists in array, but in our case, Jane does not exist, so we expect to see element does not exist in the array. So which is what we see here, element does not exist. So this is the first printout, and then this is element does not exist, which is what we see when we do a check for Jane here. And then now that we've checked Jane, we want to say go add Jane into the array. So here I'm just doing an add element. An add element is a method. We'll go to it just now. So we have an arrays.stream. Because I'm returning a array object, I'm going to map my array of object to string, and I want it to be an array of strings, just like that. And I just assign it to my array variable, and it's still going to be fine. So if you go check the add element here, we're passing in an array and we're passing in object, just like that. And the first thing that we do when we get here is to say array grow array. So when you grow the array, we're basically increasing the size of the array so that we have indexes to populate with the new data. So if you go to grow array, what we do is just we take the array and we say the old size of the array, which is array.length, and then we say the new size of the array is the old size plus 1, which we're increasing the array, and then we define a new array, or we declare a new array with the new size, just like that. And then we say system.array copy. We want to copy the array, which is the original array that we have. We want to copy it from index 0 into the new array from index 0, and we want to pass it the old size. We pass the old size because we want to iterate this one and push everything here, as all of this that is here is going to fit into this new size here because this array is bigger. Then the only element that is going to be left and null or empty, it's going to be the last one, which is what we want to use to add the new element of Jane that we are adding. So the grow array is the same implementation as the one that is used in the array list. So if you check this this class right here, let's just do a find here, which is grow basically, let's close this. So if you go to that function there, so this logic right here, obviously there is more into what internally Java is doing, but to simplify it for you, it is basically doing the same thing that we are doing here, to say system.array copy, take all of this and pass it into the new array and return the new array for us. And then once we have the new array with a new size, what we then want to do is to actually go into the array and say on the last index, add this object for us, and on the last index it will just assign or add that object, which is Jane in our case, and then we want to return the new array like we are doing right at the top here. And once Jane is added into the array, we just want to uh, basically we're converting the object array into a string array like I'm using, and based on what you'll be using, could be int, it could be any object array, you'll pass that accordingly here, and it will convert it to that array data type, and it should be fine. Just like that. So we're adding Jane and we're adding Jack, which is going to do the same thing. It's going to go and actually increase the size of the array, and then on the last index, it's going to assign Jack over there and return the array as we want it to. So now that's adding an element into the array, which is looking good. Then we do a printout again, like we're doing here, which is now to check if our elements are there in the array. So which is this second printout right here. We print John, Joe, Tess, Jane, Jack. So Jane and Jack have been added into the array, and we are happy about that. Now when you go check for Jane here, we're going to use contains element again, which is going to still check the index of Jane, and it's going to find Jane. If it does find Jane, return true. Otherwise, it's gonna, if it doesn't find Jane, it's just gonna return false. Otherwise, it's gonna return true because Jane does exist now in our array. So that looks good, and we are happy with that. So if you look at the printout, now it says element exists in array, which is Jane that we're checking here, and that is all looking good. So now that we're able to manipulate our array, traverse our array to increase the size and check if an element exists, and find an index of an element. So with all of those manipulations, now what can we do to actually remove an element from the array? So what we do on remove, if you look at here, it's basically following the same logic as adding an array, because we're going to get an a array of objects, which is what we defined on our function here. So the object array on remove is going to take the array and take the object that we want to remove, and what it does is we declare the size of the array, which is the old size of the array, and then we say new array, and we give it the old size minus 1, which means we are removing one object from the array, and we want the new array to have the new size with the removed object. So once we have that, on our iterator, we're going to declare two variables here, which is int I and int y, and we say I less than the old array size, which is the original size of the array, and we just increment that accordingly. And obviously what we want to do, we want to find the index of the object that we are passing in, and to see on which index it is. And if the index is not null, which means the object does not exist. So if the index is not -1 and the index is equals to the actual index of the object, then we want to continue, which means it will skip the adding of this particular object into the new array. So if it does come across this condition here, that the index does exist for this object here, it will just skip that. It will skip this operation into the next one. Then as it continues, it's going to add all the array elements one by one into our new array, just like that. And once all the elements have been added here, except that particular one for that object, we then have a new array, and we want to reassign that array back into or we want to return that array back on our method here. Then once we have the response from that method, we want to convert that to our string array, just like that. And now we have the new array, and we will have the name list printout here, which we can see just here. And that's this printout right here, where we no longer have Jack as an element on our array here, which is looking good. And then if we check for Jack on the array, obviously it's gonna say element does not exist. So basically we've been able to use arrays to do the same functionality that happens when you have an array list, and we now understand how array lists work behind the scenes or under the hood. And hopefully this code is helping on your projects and you to better understand what array lists are and how they work in Java, and when you use them or you use any of their functionalities, what it really means and what it really does for your code, and helps you write clean code, better code, and this improves you as a developer as well on what's happening in Java. So with all of that being said, please do guys leave your comment, please do like and subscribe, and I hope that you follow through on the Spring Boot tutorials as well as Angular tutorials. And I hope that you like this content and you stay tuned. Until next time, cheers.